Anyone who follows me on Twitter, I guess, has seen this. I'm like, I treat those folks like friends, and I run a blog too, and on that blog I essentially post the things that I used to email to my friends. So anytime I found an interesting article, I would email it. Now, the underbelly of that approach is that I'm really interested in neuroscience and things that a lot of my fans find super boring. Mm-hmm. So, and it's reflected in the comments. If I post a Chester French song, it gets 900 comments, and if I post an article on quantum theory, it gets 2. Mm-hmm. So, that violates the rules of social media engagement, but I've chosen to sort of say, okay, look, you're a part of my life now, for better or worse. The other thing, though, beyond frequency that I think is important to consider is sort of just the tenor of that communication. So Ian's heard me say this before, but if you're Ozzy Osbourne, it doesn't need to be you, bearing your soul to the world. It can be your roadie who's tweeting, oh, Ozzy's back coke and whores again, Right. So you can sort of exploit these mediums in different ways than they've been conventionally established at this point. I mean, so far the internet has been this very open, full disclosure place, but I don't think it needs to be that, and it certainly won't remain that going forward, because this is becoming something that's not just a marginal thing for nerds. It's in the fabric of everyone's daily lives.
It's a communication channel, so it's I think more than anything, it's about staying, on whatever, you've got to stay kind of in the character that you are. Your character is right. Who you are, but there's a reason that Twitter is actually great for comedians, mm-hmm. because it's a funny communications medium. So if you're not the type of person who blogs, it could be somebody else, and as long as they're on the brand, I mean, I wouldn't want to see.
It's like asking, how do you? I'm sure people were saying, how do you use telephones? Like, what's the way to use telephones? Well, people use them in different ways. Some people text you all day. Some people don't pick. The latest thing that I hate is you call and you get a text back immediately saying, hey, what's up? But there are people who exclusively use phones that way, mm-hmm. and the same will be true of the internet or Twitter or any of these things.
Right. How do you get your recorded music out into the world in a way that you can monetize it? What are the options? What are the best options now? I mean, obviously, there's some who believe, in sharing their music for free. Obviously, working at ASCAP, I, wholeheartedly, oppose that, except in situations where you want to sort of promote yourself, but. There should be a revenue stream that comes from all the hard work that you put into your music. So how do you, what are the best options now for artists in terms of where to place their music that is smart?
I mean, I'll start. I think it's genuinely tough. It's really a challenge. There's, the CD business actually is still. The majority of music sold every year is sold on CD still. So it really isn't dying as quickly as we all thought it would. In 1999, I would have thought it would be over by now, to be honest. So the fact that the majority is still sold on CD is incredible to me. But I think what's really interesting is that while the industry is going through this transition from CD to digital downloads, where we're going to end up is clearly not also digital downloads. I mean, for me personally, the only use case for digital downloads is my iPod, this one device, because in my house I've got Sonos, and in my car I've got my cell phone, and it's clearly going to be in the cloud from a Spotify type of perspective. But it's also true that it takes 100 plus plays on Spotify to equal what you got from a royalty perspective on the CD or the digital download. So we've got to get to a different level of volume of subscription, people who have subscriptions and that sort of thing. So I think it's going to be a long transition from here to there. And to answer your question directly, what the artist should do is they should be everywhere. You don't ever want someone to type your band name or song name into a search engine and come up with nothing. So you should have it on your website, you should have it on YouTube, you should have it on iTunes, you should have it on Spotify. It should be a ringtone in that place in some far off land. You really want to distribute everywhere. And I think that over time, we will collectively, work on the ways that it gets monetized. It really is being, sort of slugged out in the trenches every day.
One part of what a fan will want to purchase from an artist. I mean, there's merchandise, there's an experience that they can't get anywhere else. Jared, you've had some interesting like contests, and you've just started this new project called Vert. Maybe tell us a little bit about that and how that's really sort of blazing a trail in a new way for people to experience
Well,
music.
I guess what you were talking about before, and it relates to Vert, is creating value. If people don't perceive there's value in something, they're not going to part with their hard-earned cash. And right now, there's not much value associated with owning a digital file that happens to be music. And it's a big discussion debate about how, why that happened and what's going to happen in the future. But I'm not so concerned about trying to generate revenue from digital files. I'll leave that to the record company as they try to claw their way into the future. You can laugh, it's okay. Uncomfortable silence. It's okay to kick them while they're down. But as I like an angry crowd. I think it's been a blessing, the fact that the music industry has almost fallen off a cliff, at least the recorded music part of it, because it's really made us have to take a good hard look at what we're doing. It's made us have to innovate. There wouldn't be a Spotify. I don't know if Ian would have the success that he's had without these challenges. Mm-hmm. And they've presented us all with opportunities. Music wouldn't be the second biggest success story with Kickstarter. And for me, it's actually made me innovate. It's made me take my future, which I encourage everyone here to do. I'm assuming everyone's here because they give a shit about their future and their work and their art, mm-hmm. and they want to make something great with your life, right? Or else you wouldn't be sitting here in this, room with us. But I'm a big believer in having responsibility and taking control and being a part of your destiny. Mm-hmm. And so we've really been proactive in finding solutions for ourselves as artists that allow us to create and innovate. A lot of times when things are free, it's very difficult to innovate or create. And I think about it like a restaurant. When's the last time you walked by a restaurant and they said free food and you were like, yeah, I'm gonna go in there and have the best meal of my fucking life? You probably would just run by the place. And for us, we're about creating value. We're about creating a valuable experience. Whether that experience is a live show, whether it's a live broadcast, whether it's a piece of merchandise, whether it's a file that happens to be music. It's about an experience. So what we did, 4 years ago, I started a company called The Hive. It was basically to service 30 Seconds to Mars. We hired some people to handle anything and everything digital. We politely took it away from the record company because we were frustrated with their lack of ability to innovate and be creative. And we haven't looked back since, and that company's grown. We're working with other artists and other brands now. But that led us to starting a VIP ticketing company that takes a much more interesting and delicate approach to VIP ticketing. And then that led to the third company, which is called Vert. And what Vert is, we sell individual digital tickets to live events that are broadcast online in a social theater. And it's really great because we kind of like Kickstarter, we ask people to invest up front because they purchase tickets before the event. Mm-hmm. And we're able to design an event that's valuable. And our second event is April 27th. The first event was a smash, and people were really surprised that fans, customers, friends, family, were actually willing to plunk down the $14.99 for an experience. Mm-hmm. But what we found is that if they can trust that experience is valuable and worthy, they'll go for it, just like they do on Kickstarter.